Oh,
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 552, Spider-Man 3 Review, Confused Classics. This is from Confused Matthew back in the day, probably about 10, 15 years. I can't remember when he made this thing. Let's see. Oh, it's 2008. There you go. Around there. So this has less than 15,000 views from this upload. The original upload, who knows? It was pretty popular back in the day. But we all sort of grew up on YouTube, Confused Matthew. And I'm glad he's still around doing weird stuff, but he's just doing Let's Play videos, I think, which is fine. That's his thing. Good for him. But Spider-Man 3, been a while. Definitely not the most popular of the Spider-Man series from Sam Raimi, but entertaining to say the least. Strange takes on the Spider-Man character, or Spider-Man characters. I think it was the death of Doc Ock, and then the focus on Venom, which is fine. One of a very well-known villain of Spider-Man, or Spider-Man. So, not the greatest rendition of all the villains, though. There's several villains they just throw in there for 5-10 minutes, and they just jump around, which is not the best way to put villains in a story for a trilogy. It doesn't quite work that way, but it was fun to watch and silly. Okay. Hopefully we're all on the watch together and we're all ready to go. All of our sound checks out. Okay, let's get going.
Before we begin, oh my god, I've wanted to clear this up for years. You'll notice that as the review begins, I talk a lot about what James Rolfe had to say on the reception of this film.
Really?
So many people heard this and got pissed off at me for what I said, saying like, wow, way to stick it to James Rolfe, you dickhead. So let me be very clear. People emailed me with a quote from James Rolfe's review. What I was responding to was my belief that they were taking his quote out of context and oversimplifying the matter. I was responding to those people, not James Rolfe. What James was saying is that you can find problems like the ones people had with Spider-Man 3 in any film. And he's right. He's absolutely right. I think you can find the exact same problems people had with Suicide Squad in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Exactly the same. People don't mind them in that case because they feel that Guardians of the Galaxy was better executed. I don't think it.
I'd want better examples of that,
Yeah.
concrete examples, because it rather seemed like Suicide Squad was trying to copy what Guardians of the Galaxy did, but did it badly.
That's why they got him for the sequel.
I'm trying to think. They have a team that comes together. Same with Guardians of the Galaxy. They have pop art music they license, or classic music as well. The pacing of Suicide Squad and the repetition, some of it did not make sense. Why they did it the way they did, and then you realize it's because they hired the people who did the trailer to cut the film, which doesn't make. I mean, why would you do that? It's kind of strange. So what are the problems with Suicide Squad, and how are they the same in Guardians of the Galaxy? I want him to tell me that. That would be helpful.
Yeah, there's various problems. The humor works different, if at all. It's mainly misplaced. I'd say
it's more focused in Guardians of the Galaxy. There's fewer characters for sure.
That as well. The characters, like all characters in Suicide Squad, are new, basically, and they can't breathe. They don't get the right time to actually be fleshed out enough. They're not very memorable either, and at the end you got basically just boring sky laser that we punch, and that's it. Guardians of the Galaxy has charm. Suicide Squad didn't. Suicide Squad wanted to be dark and edgy.
Right, yeah.
That kind of failed.
With Guardians of the Galaxy, you like the characters even if they're convicts and even if they're not the nicest people, but you can tell they are trying to be nice people, whereas with Suicide Squad, they're just villains. They're just bad guys.
Not necessarily. They had some like Flame Guy had an interesting backstory. They could have fleshed him out more.
Yeah.
You need to, because with a movie like that, you need to focus on one or at max two characters and how they interact. And have the others as fluff that you expand on in subsequent movies.
I know, but I'm just thinking of the characters themselves. Like even Will Smith's character was likable because of his story with his daughter. But you compare that to Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like you like all the characters for whatever reason. They're not inherently bad, even though they're
Will Smith's character?
Sorry?
Did you say Will Smith's character?
Will Smith's character in Suicide Squad, the original, had a daughter story. He was
I completely forgot about that, and I don't think him likable. I didn't think him because I didn't found him memorable.
Right, we're talking about the original.
So and he's so unmemorable that you don't even remember what the character's name is.
Right, and I hope we're talking about the first Suicide Squad, because the Suicide Squad, which came out 2-3 years ago, or I can't remember how long ago. That at least was fun. That was a fun thing that they redid or fixed, or I don't know. I didn't watch it yet. I haven't
seen that one.
Yeah, I can't say. So I can't say exactly what it was about. But at least they corrected their mistake, kept the same title for whatever reason. So, like the formula does work, but obviously if they're all the same, like I just want to give us the format, give us the actual criteria that were used, and then we could say, oh, that's what you're talking about, Matthew. We get it now. So that's what we need to compare to. But less characters are always better for clarity and for doing something with more time. So
for these I don't know what you call it. Is it ensemble thing? Like what do you do with heist movies like Ocean's 11?
Yeah, exactly.
You have so many characters, but they all need to stand out enough, not just I have a weird power. That's not enough.
Yeah, the heist scenario, I always say, next to a murder mystery, the plot is the focus, because everyone has a functional reason to be there, and then you get their little moment of like 10 seconds or whatever it is, and they do their thing. And the next guy does their thing. That's good. Everything is based off a plan. The plan goes wrong. They got to hurry it up and figure out how to fix the problem to get back to the plan. That's good. And we didn't quite get...
That's what that's what could have worked with Suicide Squad, but that's not what they did.
Yeah, it just did not work out.
Because what was the plot of Suicide Squad?
It's a good question. Why was the plot of Suicide Squad? What was the point of stopping this supernatural being that no one can kill? And
that wasn't even the goal at the beginning.
Yeah, and what's her name had the heart the entire time. Waller had the heart the entire time. She could have just stopped this whole operation and ended the Enchantress or whatever her name was. So it was silly. It was this silly plot. Why do we have a lady with a baseball bat running around and a guy who could light stuff on fire? It's like, I don't get it. How's he going to stop Superman?
Was that an intentional reference to Guardians of the Galaxy? Why is the plot?
I don't know.
What is the plot? Why is the plot?
We need a bunch of villains to stop Superman. It's like, they're not the right villains. I'm sorry, you got the wrong bunch of... A guy who could tie ropes is not going to stop Superman. I'm sorry.
No? What if they're kryptonite ropes?
Yeah, okay. See, that would make sense. You would have...
Would it? And kryptonite.
Yeah.
Kryptonite's a crystal.
Yeah, like if I don't know, there was a kryptonite bat or something, or kryptonite-laden spores. I don't know, like something like that.
Spores.
I don't know. You had some sort of laboratory that took kryptonite and refined it and turned to other things, so that the guys like Deadshot had a kryptonite bullet, stuff like that. That would make sense.
Kryptonite bear maze.
Oh yeah, spray.
Bat spray. Kryptonite bat spray.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see what Matthew has to say about this movie instead.
Overwhelming majority of people on planet Earth and the whole universe do. Just saying, well, you can find fault with anything is not an airtight defense, and I don't think that James was saying it was, but I think the people who emailed me with that quote thought that's what he was saying, and that's what I was responding to. Never did I intend to throw James Rolfe under the bus.
Yeah, but we get that all the time from like people like Willems who says you could do this with any movie. It's like, yes, but we're not, and we have our specific concerns with, for example, The Last Jedi and why it doesn't work. We're not doing it randomly with the same criteria and say, every movie is imperfect. Like, no, we have reasons why.
Oh, man, it feels good to get that out finally. Okay, so on to my favorite part of the review. I've made a massive fuck ton of mistakes doing Confused Matthew, but the one in this review was my absolute favorite. Criticizing the film for giving Kirsten Dunst an obviously different singing voice, only to find out that it was, in fact, her voice. Everyone who heard this when the review premiered was like, man, do your research next time. And I'm like, no, then we wouldn't have this hilarious fuck-up. Of course this fuck-up could have easily been avoided if I had just looked up who did the singing voice, but the voice sounded so distinctly different to me that I didn't think it was necessary. Incidentally, I did make a habit after this of looking into those things before I did reviews, and still managed to fuck things up, so, what are you gonna do?
So I appreciate Matthew making it known that he did screw up, which is good, because just because it sounds different or looks different or whatever the case may be, like having a stand-in or, it's clearly not the same actor. It's like, well, you never know. Maybe she does her own stunts. Who knows? You have to check, okay? you have to.
Who knows? Maybe Brie Larson does her own stunts. Oh wait.
No, I don't think. I think they would have a contract saying she doesn't have to, but even Marvel would be like, no, you're not doing your own stunts. We need your face.
I want to see Harrison Ford do his own stunts in the Marvel movie. Come on, they're forcing him to make a fifth Indiana Jones. Why can't we have him?
I think he's too old. I don't think he's capable of doing any more
stunts. Not too old for a whip and a good old adventure.
He's over 70 at least. I don't know.
He could land the plane.
Why they're making more of those films, I don't know. But Disney. Anyway.
I could have taken that part down, edited the mistake out, and then proceeded from there, but no. This kind of hilarious fuck-up needs to be preserved for all time. I criticized her singing voice for not sounding like her voice when it was her voice. Classic. As for the majority of the review that I didn't fuck up, yeah, the badness of this movie doesn't seem to be much disputed these days. Spider-Man 3 does have some defenders, but most people see it as the eyesore of the franchise. That along with the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. The last time I saw this film is when I was reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I disliked it just as much then as I did the first time I saw it, so it really hasn't incurred any love for me over the years. This review was fun. It was the first time that I used video footage and edited it very badly, but I was trying. And still am. I still like the girl-seeking crane bit. The whole fact that Spider-Man left before stopping the crane is still hilarious. It's one of my favorite later reviews. So, enjoy.
You know his words will get you farther than the film will ever.
Just speed that up. Okay.
Happened when I put this film on my list to review. A large amount of emails came into my inbox telling me not to review this film, and instead to watch James Rolfe's review, which they felt would eliminate my need to review this film at all. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, James's review was a defense of this film, and I've posted a link to it for anyone who wants to hear the opposite side of my views, as his is probably the best defense of this film out there. Along with the recommendation that I watch the James review, those who sent the suggestion also attached the exact same argument from that review. I'm serious, there was no exception. They all did this. Now, I am by no means chastising James for how he feels about this film, nor is this a review of his review. I am simply responding to the argument given to me numerous times by his viewers. That argument is that no movie is perfect, and no matter what they did with this one, people would still have found something to complain about. My response to this is, yes, that's true of any film, and that can be used to defend any film, whether it's Weekend at Bernie's or Howard the Duck. But, and I don't mean to give offense when I say that this argument is a straw man. No one hated or complained about this film because it wasn't perfect. We hated it and complained about it because it wasn't good. Reviewing Spider-Man 3 gives me the same problem I had reviewing the Star Wars prequels. So much has been said about this one that it makes it really difficult to say anything new. In fact, videos such as the parody from How It Should Have Ended, which I have also posted a link to, have made me seriously question whether I need to say anything about this film at all. but the pages and pages of requests have practically demanded that I say something, and as always, there are many bad aspects of this film that people seem to miss. So without further ado, here it is. The film opens to Peter Parker narrating about what's been going on since the last film. This narration is actually one of the chief complaints among critics and fans, but to be honest, I don't really understand why. The last film had narration in the beginning, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I think I remember the first one having that.
Doesn't that fit with Peter Parker?
Right.
Yeah, no, it fits.
They set up the frame. This is what happened. Ba 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 ba. It's kind of standard stuff.
And I mean, Peter Parker is a very talkative character.
Yeah, no, this is normal. I don't see a problem. It depends what he's actually saying within context of what's being shown on the screen, of course, but the actual technique is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Too, so I was kind of expecting it. No, the narration at the beginning didn't bother me, but this sure as shit did.
They say that falling in love is wonderful. It's wonderful. So they say.
That doesn't sound a damn thing like her.
Really?
I mean, maybe if we had never heard this character speak before, they might have gotten away with this, but we're so used to Mary Jane's voice by now that we know it's not her voice coming out. Whoever it is pretty damn good, though. So after this show ends, Peter confronts Harry. Harry learns...
When you've actually learned singing properly, your singing voice can be very different from your normal speaking voice.
But that sounds like the actress, so I don't know where he went with that. Unless he doesn't know. Unless he doesn't know how a singing voice is supposed to sound.
Yeah, just like you can learn to modulate your voice to sound different for different purposes. And I'm not talking about like ventriloquism or voice acting, but just differences between like a stage voice to address a room without the need of a microphone.
Sure.
And your normal and your like table voice.
Yeah, I know. When people who've taken even like a few classes of band or choir or whatever you do at school when you were growing up, the higher octaves sound different, but once you like, she's not hitting a high octave, she's just singing in her normal range. So it's like, that's her normal voice. That makes sense.
Mike, do you want to demonstrate a trick I showed you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Might take a second.
Okay.
Yep. So it's like, here's my voice here. Here's my voice here.
Sounds fine.
Yeah, it's just, what's it called? Just, you could change the tone of your voice depending on how you speak from either your mouth or your chest.
Yeah.
Or your stomach, you can go deeper.
Yeah.
Like, go as deep as you could with that trick. Like last time.
A little rusty on it.
Okay. Well, This is what acting classes do. They teach you how to speak from your chest or from your head. You know, there's all these ways to draw out your sound for your voice box, where you put the force. But she's singing. That's normal. Sounds good. Okay, he got that wrong. That's fair.
Happens.
That Peter was Spider-Man in the last film and is now thinking about revenge. So then we see him stepping into the same chamber that gave his father superpowers, and we see that it gives him superpowers too. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this superpower-giving machine have the unfortunate side effect of making you crazy and unstable? So why didn't that happen to Harry? Anyway, we then cut to a scene of Peter and Mary Jane confessing their love for one another when a meteor just happens to crash near them and a big black blob attaches itself to Peter's scooter. After this, we are then introduced to Flint Marko, who has to be the most lackluster villain of recent years. For all of his being big, brutish, and gruff, Marko is a complete wimp. And as we will see, the only thing we're ever going to know about this guy is that he has a sick daughter. Oh, I'm sorry. There's also one more thing we find out about him.
Not a bad person.
Apparently, the writers of this film think the audience to be so stupid that we wouldn't possibly figure out this guy is supposed to be not really a bad person unless they make him say he isn't really a bad person in dialogue. This character and all the story arcs that go with him are absolutely pathetic. They could have...
It also makes him look a little bit slow.
Well, yeah,
dumb.
that might be the point. When someone has to say, I'm not like this, I'm this, or that, it's like, okay, why are you admitting to that? What's the point? Do you not understand the social context of someone asking you that question? Or are they accusing you of being evil or X? And you say, no, I'm not X. It's like, okay, is there a conversation? But he's leaving the conversation. Like it's accusatory. He's like, I don't want to be here. I'm not like that. So the conversation itself should have clued you in with the body language and maybe the conversation he's having with his daughter, because his daughter might have asked that. I don't know the scene here. I don't know what the context is with the dialogue, but you would do that with a little girl. You wouldn't do that with your wife or someone else. So there has to be a good reason for that. If not, it's pretty shoddy dialogue. But as you say, Wisp, it could be, something wrong. Like he's not up to par with talking in an adult sense.
And unlike the other characters in the story, he's not a super genius.
Yeah, he's just a guy who had a bad day, and he's getting into trouble all the time with his powers and trying to protect his family, which is typical stuff. But you have a villain with a heart of gold, or someone on down on their luck, and they're trying to make the best of the situation, but all they know how to do is break things. In this case, transform into giant sand monsters and break stuff.
I just hate the fact that they retcon Uncle Ben's death to be that Sandman killed him.
Oh,
pretty dumb.
Yeah.
That was pretty dumb.
That was weird.
And it made less and less sense the more they explained.
Yeah.
Told a real heartfelt story about a guy who had bad luck his whole life but wants to do something good and turn it around. Instead, we're told once that he's not really a bad person, and then he just runs around with a dumb expression on his face for the rest of the film. That's not a character. That's time filler. So meanwhile, Peter goes to Aunt May's apartment and tells her he's going to ask Mary Jane to marry him. This begins one of the only attempts made by this film to have a heartfelt moment between two characters. The problem with this is that the scene was just badly handled. First off, the dialogue is bad. It's just a lot of inane rambling on the part of Aunt May. She gives Peter the story of Uncle Ben's proposal to her while giving every single detail about the event, no matter how small and unimportant.
We were very good swimmers, and it was a beautiful day, and he said, let's swim to the island. And at the island, we found a perfect spot by an old tree, and we lay down and looked up at the sky. And then he said, close your eyes, May. And I did. And then he said, open. And I did.
So then it was time for us to go. So I opened the car door, got into the car, closed the door.
You fucking anti-romantic idiot.
Does he not like this scene?
I don't think he understands how normal human beings work. Because this is a slice of life scene. This is what makes Aunt May a relatable, fully fledged human being who has a history and emotions.
Yeah,
and has lived a life with some wonderful memories.
The common complaint you might have heard about husbands never shutting up about their wives and vice versa is it's always some sentimental thing you can't relate to or you don't care about. You're like, uh-oh, it's this sob story again, or it's this romantic nonsense. And here's one of those scenes. And Confused Matthew doesn't like that. But this is like, this is the most important person in his life, aside from Mary Jane, that Peter is confiding in. Hey, I'm going to go confess my feelings and marry this woman. And she's like, oh, here's my story. This is what happened to me. And yeah, it's soppy and silly, and yeah, but that's what it is. That's the scene. That's the point.
And that's what these moments can be. That's what also makes them wonderful.
And uncomfortable and all these things, yeah.
And yeah, it is the very little things. Look, your aunt isn't just someone. Your grandma isn't just someone who's just there to make you breakfast and lunch and do some chores for you. It's a real person. And there's life advice and maybe reminiscence. And maybe you should listen to those stories because very, very soon you will not be able to.
Yeah. I'm trying to compare this to like, was it the first Matrix movie where they go to what the hell's her name? The Oracle?
The Oracle?
And she's like baking cookies and she's trying to give him advice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an obscure sort of message. Like it's half philosophical, half symbolic. And it's like, okay, that because you're in the world of the Matrix, that sort of makes sense. And this is a computer program, so they're talking weirdly. And in this one, it's completely natural and human. And it's like, here's a weird story about my husband when he first proposed to me. You're like, wow. Okay, fair enough. Simple, human, basic. You don't have to like it, but it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So that's the difference. Is just because there's scenes in a movie you don't like, that doesn't mean they're bad or misplaced or don't work.
Yeah. And so the difference is also that the Oracle was talking about future events of the movie that would happen that Neo couldn't know about. This is just talking about the past.
Right.
Very different.
Well, they're trying to impart their wisdom in some capacity, which is one is obscure and one is personal. So it's like, all right, fair enough. Like she could just sit there and go, oh, wow, congrats, Peter. Have a cookie. It's like, no. Let's have a conversation. I'd rather we have a conversation, even if it's silly.
Put my brake pedal, turned the key, put it in gear, and accelerated whilst turning the wheel in a left or right manner depending on which direction I wanted to go. The second problem here is that Peter has absolutely nothing to contribute to this conversation. I mean, the character has virtually no dialogue at all in this scene. They could have had poor Aunt May delivering these lines in an empty room and it wouldn't have made that much difference. So as Peter leaves,
that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, hey, Wisp, I need some help with my taxes. Well, what you gotta do, Smud, is you go down to the office, you get a accountant, and you you go over here. It's like, oh, thanks, bye. Like, what am I gonna say? I know nothing about taxes. So that's why I asked someone else.
Look, first thing is you check whether you're actually paying church tax while not being part of the church, so you save those $80 a month. Very simple.
Does Matthew not understand simple dialogue? This is weird. That was a weird criticism of a scene he didn't like because of the content. That's weird. Anyway.
Is then attacked by the new goblin. I have to admit, this scene was actually really cool to watch in the theater. But then we get one of the most gut-wrenching, sickening, intelligence-insulting plot threads I've ever seen. The butler telling Harry that Spider-Man didn't really kill his father at the end of this film has nothing on this.
Hey, buddy. Hey. Hit my head.
That's right. Harry has amnesia. Yes, you heard me right. Amnesia. The biggest soap opera cop-out in the history of writing. It's at this moment during the writing process that someone should have said, you know what? Spider-Man is a pretty big franchise.
Yeah, while I understand the need for wanting better written shit, comic books are extremely cheesy.
I mean, I'd buy it the first time with Harry being forgetful after a hit like that. But it's like, after a couple of days, I think he might be showing some signs of faking it.
Yeah, but I would not forget that, and this isn't very far into the first phase of the MCU, where they try to make some better writing, at least with Iron Man. I like that one. Comic books are cheesy. They are soap opera stories, if not worse.
Yeah, if you wanted to sell it more, you would have him be really out to lunch, like totally like, who are you? Like, what's going on? Like the short-term memory, the long-term memory, like everything would be kind of wiped.
Yeah, and when I say comic books in this context, I mean the US superhero comics.
Yeah.
Have you ever read those, especially the older ones? It's like the cheese is just
it's soap opera
God.
times super mutant blood times cosmic powers times whatever. So time travel, you name it. It just anything is gonna go.
Yeah. So regarding that, these movies are surprisingly grounded
compared to people coming back from the dead every time they get killed. Like losing your memory, definitely not a good thing, but it's how it's done. And if you could buy that he fell from did he fall from the sky? Like what happened to? How did he get his head hurt? I don't know.
If you don't overdo it, it's
within the context of a comic book film. You can go okay, but then you realize, oh, I'm watching a comic book film. Don't take it too critically. It's not supposed to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Don't expect Shakespeare.
Yeah, if you have a guy coming out of a chamber like the Fly, and he turns into his crazy evil dad without the crazy, you're like, all right, maybe there's some side effects. Maybe his brain is a little different, but you don't have to well, how does memory work? How do we have cognition? How do we have consciousness? Like, you don't want to start doing that. You're not going to go very far.
Yeah, and even with Shakespeare, the ending of Romeo and Juliet, it's dumb, it's silly, and that's part of the point. Because that's a depiction of love. It's you do silly, dumb shit, and stupid coincidences happen that just make you both end up dead for no good reason. It's great.
All right.
And it's total cheese.
Yeah. Okay.
We could probably save 1 or even 5 of these plots for the next film. Instead, they cram all this incoherent and unrelated crap into the film, and by this point, someone said, we've still got the Sandman, Venom, Peter and Mary Jane's problems, the annoying Eddie Brock and the police chief and his daughter for some reason to deal with. There's no way we can do the new Goblin right now, so let's just give Harry a wang on the head and give him amnesia. Then we'll stick him in the corner until we need him again, and then his amnesia will wear off. At first I thought they were giving him amnesia for a purpose. He can't remember that Peter killed his father, and he and Peter are friends again. So now Peter has to make a choice between having his friend or telling him the truth. But of course not. No good writing in this film. The amnesia is just a convenience for the plot. What the hell did they take us for? So now that they have Harry doped up and stuck in the corner...
Dude, if you want to watch The Shawshank Redemption, watch The Shawshank Redemption. This is Spider-Man. And while you can complain that maybe they crammed too many subplots into this, maybe, but don't complain about the cheese, because and this is not a Space Wizards argument. When you make this movie, you can have this kind of superhero movie. You can have Zack Snyder's Justice League. You decide.
Yeah, I was thinking of...
Because the super good stuff, that's hard to get. I don't know who makes the super good stuff with superhero movies. It can be done. I would like to see it, but it's not... Gingerman is here, finally.
I was thinking of the Green Mile because there is a little bit of supernatural powers in that. Yep. But it's so subtle, but it's all about the drama between why this person's doing what they're doing and how they were treated and how the other characters treat him. So it can be done. You can have supernatural powers and have a drama that makes sense, even if you don't believe the amnesia or whatever. So it's not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing in this film, let's just say.
It's still pretty bad, though.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's other things to hate, but this is not... it's like, whatever. It's fine.
All right, now, before we move on, I just got here. At least 3 things I do want to add. First, the whole thing with Harry and the enhancement formula. Part of it was because Norman Osborn's head was already fucked up from all the shit he had in his mind. All the serum did was make the Goblin his own entity. Second, yes, Sandman killing Uncle Ben... revealed in this movie was god-awful, and that was Sam Raimi's idea. and it still sucked.
Yeah.
And third, the MCU literally did not exist until the year after this movie came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it started with Iron Man in 2008. Iron Man in 2008. That's when it started.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, it's when writing superhero movies got a bit more serious.
This is true.
No,
This was one.
But you need to do it the right way. And there were some movies before Infinity War that were doing that well. Others not so much.
At the very least, there are some of them that had plenty of potential.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was squandered or not, that's up for debate, depending on the movie.
Yeah.
But you are right.
Yeah, but post Endgame, everything's just what the hell.
Yeah, there's no question after that.
Yeah. I would like to hear Matthew's like comparison of writing and soapy silliness of Spider-Man 3 versus Phase 4.
Oh, I'd pay to see that.
Because I think he'd have to praise Spider-Man 3 then. For all its flaws.
By comparison, yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep going.
They're now free to go to something totally unrelated, but just as contrived. Mary Jane comes to Peter upset over a bad review. She touts an uncharacteristically bitchy attitude, which is tried to be explained away by the fact that the bad review reminds her of her abusive father. But I still can't see it as anything more than forcing problems on these two. Anyway, before Peter can really console her, the police monitor reports an out-of-control crane. Yeah, we've all heard about New York's problems with cranes that are on top of buildings for no apparent reason going out of control, right? The crane inches its way towards the building, traveling at about 1 mile per hour, and still manages to take out one of the levels. I guess it must be made of titanium from Krypton or something, I guess. Anyway, it makes its way back again and takes out the bottom floor, causing a girl to slide down the floor and hold on for dear life at the bottom. Her father, the police chief, shows up, along with Eddie Brock, who dated her one time. Then it is revealed that the out-of-control crane is also a girl-seeking crane, as it now comes up the building and heads right for her.
No,
the girl falls, and after a few flashy moves, Spider-Man catches her, exchanges a few words with her and Eddie Brock, and then goes away. Hey, where are you going? The crane's still out of control. Didn't you come here to stop the crane?
No.
He didn't come here to stop the crane. He came here for the sole purpose of giving two irrelevant characters a few minutes of screen time. I'll tell you, this is great quality writing so far.
They literally say partway through the scene before even Spider-Man even shows up that they cut the power to the entire block, which slows the damn thing down. And also completely skating over the fact that some girl is Gwen Stacy.
Right.
She has that name, but we like to call her.
This one. Crane doesn't necessarily need power to be swinging wildly, because I would just say I would have just said, oh, somebody forgot to put in the brake, because what you do with big cranes is that you let them swing freely, so that when wind comes, they're not getting the full sideway of the wind, but they instead turn into the wind. Like, these weather cranes that you have that are on top of rooftops. They're swinging freely, so that they point into the right direction the wind is blowing. And you do the same with construction cranes.
I know, but it's kind of weird to have a setup for a crane on a lower building that if it swings, it hits another building. Like, I've never seen that.
Why would you have extended it so far out?
Yeah. And I live in Toronto. We have probably not the most cranes in any other city, but we have the most development of any other city in the world. So there's cranes. Like, I can look out my window and look at the horizon. Really? There's a crane somewhere.
Really? More than fucking Berlin?
It's insane. You have to. The past 20 years have been nuts, and they're still crazy.
I can give you 30 years.
Well, I don't know how long it's been going on for, but it's like even the roads.
Berlin's we call it the eternal construction site.
Yeah, no, that's same with Toronto. we have 2 seasons. We have winter and construction, and it's either the buildings or the streets, and it doesn't matter what season you're in. Something's always down. Like on the weekends, there's multiple subways closed because there's construction or maintenance, or they got some water main broke. So there's always something blowing up and screwing everyone's plans. But yeah, no, I've never seen a crane smaller and in between buildings that they put it up, so it only swings, or it swings completely 360. I've never seen that.
And then the Amazing Spider-Man has a whole bunch of them right down Main Street.
Yeah, swing 360 is normal, but then there's also space for that. The weird thing is that this thing doesn't have the space for it. You would then... You can build smaller cranes onto buildings.
Yeah, and you see how they go into the wind? Well, the ones that I've seen, not all of them, but some of them, they have the crane, when it gets packaged up, it actually goes up. So it actually, that's one of its default positions. So the crane is up in the air as opposed to horizontal. So, we've, obviously our crane technology has changed over the years, but... This is a comic book movie. It's like, okay, they're going to do something fancy with a crane, whatever, it's silly.
They needed something to throw into the building in order to do the rescue so that Spider-Man could do his spider powers with the web stuff.
If it wasn't a crane, it would be a helicopter or, I don't know.
Or a one-off supervillain.
No, a bridge got out of control that flew through the city or some whatever.
Yeah, pick anything that is really strong, like a lever system, a pulley system, a catapult. I don't know.
I wanted to say catapult, but it's too silly.
I know, but it's like, okay, in medieval times, there's a catapult on display, and it goes out of control and starts swinging like crazy.
Fun fact:
Spider-Man doesn't have much to swing by.
Yeah.
Oh, he could swing through the forest.
You mean Spider Knight?
Spider.
That was a thing.
That's literally the name of medieval Spider-Man, Spider Knight.
Oh, fucking hell!
I know.
Does he have plate armor?
Yes.
Cool.
So he's swinging through the forest on web things in plate armor.
I think he's just a regular medieval knight with the spider theme.
Interesting.
I think that's it. But also, like, to go back to the building scene we just saw, it's like most likely unrelated. But fun fact: the original plan for this movie was for it to be Sandman and Vulture. Vulture played by Ben Kingsley.
Right.
So I just have that feeling that maybe the plan was for that building action scene for it to be Vulture instead of a crane.
Yeah.
That was attacking.
Because they already did the
based
subway
on how high up it was.
Right, they did the subway scene where he's ripping the glass off the buildings as he's going through them.
So that he can stop the train, yeah.
Yeah, like that makes, that looks really cool. It makes sense. It's New York-ish. Is it New York? Taking place in New York?
It is New York, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Marvel stuff takes place in New York unless they say otherwise.
Exactly. So there's lots of exposed
Yeah.
areas of the city, like the subways and the highways, etc. So,
but I think I just have that again. I have the feeling that it was probably going to be Vulture that caused the destruction of the building the way it happened, but because they changed plans because of studio meddling, they changed it to the crane.
Yeah,
that's not what it is. I just have that feeling that that's what it was. That's what it was going to be.
Yeah,
that's just me, though.
We could brainstorm and think like, okay, maybe a Harrier jet goes out of control. Anything that has an engine, like there's all these possibilities you could figure out what would happen.
Not anything with an engine, no.
Anyway.
Back in the days where it was just 10-minute videos.
Mistakes. We all make them, and now I'm forced to correct one. I said at the beginning of part 1 that the singing voice coming out of Kirsten Dunst didn't sound a damn thing like her. I stand by that statement, but that does not change the fact that it actually was her. The voice you are hearing is all Dunst. Now, ironically, my first criticism in this review has turned into an unintentional compliment. I was so taken aback both by how different and how good her singing voice sounded that I honestly didn't think it was her. All I can say in my feeble defense is, That's why I'm not a music critic. Kudos to you, Kirsten. In this shitstorm of a terrible film, you are clearly not the problem. So at this point in the film, we find Flint Marko doing the only thing he really ever does in this film, running around with a dumb expression on his face. The police chase him to a small, easy-to-get-over chain-link fence in the middle of nowhere.
Are we getting repeats?
Yeah, this guy take the west side, this guy take the east.
Or is that on my
Lord
end?
knows you can't just jump over the fence after him. Reminds me of the Vogons in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Moving on.
Now, the next complaint about this scene is so common, it's barely even worth mentioning anymore. All I have to say is, if NASA detected something walking below one of the rockets before takeoff, I hope to God they wouldn't just assume it's a bird. So now the Sandman has sand powers. Wow, that's menacing. And he's off to run around with a dumb expression on his face as a clump of sand now. Meanwhile, Peter meets...
Just skates over that entire scene, though. Of him, and it's also that those two things don't happen like one after the other, though. The experiment and then the transformation. That's clearly separated for a reason.
Right. He seems to just sort of hit the plot point. So this is what happens. This is what occurs. You're like, okay, and he just doesn't like it. He's just telling us what happens per scene. Is that all he's doing?
He's condensing it a bit too much.
Right.
But it's like, and I'll give credit where it's due. The transformation scene of the Sandman is one of the most, at least for the time, one of the most technically looking, one of the best looking CGI bits in any movie around that time.
Oh yeah.
If only just because of how much it took to make that like look as real as possible.
Yeah, and this is during the times of where they had to render particles to look into a certain shape, and that takes months to get the baking of the pre-rendered scenes to work and all the other crazy post stuff. So yeah, that nowadays it's not as time consuming, especially for CGI or completely CGI animated films, but back then it was still as bad in terms of time as it was in the late 90s. It was just slow, even though the resolution was higher.
Yeah, the closest thing we had to that kind of effort put into a scene like that was, if you remember the scene in Finding Nemo where they're in the whale's mouth, all the particles it took to create the water in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the scene of the Sandman transformation in this movie like trumps the whale mouth scene in Finding Nemo. If you actually look at the behind the scenes of both and actually see the technical specs and the effort that went into making one versus the other, it's a massive difference.
I remember the behind the scenes or the conversation between Michael Jackson's Black and White video, where the hair fall, like they switch every 5 seconds to another actor, and one of them was a girl and she had long hair and the hair fell. Like they had to animate every single strand of hair to fall in a certain natural way, and that took like months. So we had this technology. It's slowly getting better as better renderers came out, better hardware came out, and this is post 3DFX. So we had, FX accelerators came in the 90s. We had math processors. We had all this great stuff, and then the hardware got better.
And then all the advancement.
We got better physics.
Yep.
Yes.
And stuff.
And then the myriad of advancements in CGI technology that came out as a direct result of how quickly video games were advancing.
Right. Even though
video games play a hand in that history of 3D animation.
Yeah. Even though the basic math was the same, you're talking about different engines and different techniques to show that on the screen outside of, we have vectors, obviously, but there's light maps, there's bump maps, there's all kinds of cool textures that simulate something which is too difficult to do, like ray tracing is way too difficult to do. Yeah. Now we can do it for whatever reason. So
I know specifically Nintendo. Well, before we go back to the video, I know specifically Nintendo, at least early on during like the N64 days and stuff, and a little bit for Donkey Kong Country, they were using the same SGI tech that movies like Jurassic Park were using around that time.
Yeah, you're right.
So at least the basis for advancement, the basis was the same.
I know.
Yeah, it just went off in different directions.
I remember
The tech for Metal Mario and Mario 64 was the same as for Terminator 2, as well as for the Stargate effect.
right.
Exactly.
It was all the same stuff.
I remember
It was all the same. It was all the same tech from SGI. Yeah.
I remember the DirectX versions from 5 to 12, and if you look at the base code, there was not much difference because all the math was there. The only difference was the shaders to support the new hardware to do different lighting techniques and shading techniques and particle effects. So all the math was all done. It was just to support the new hardware tech. And that's all we've ever gotten for the past, I'd say 15, 16 years. It's just been the same stuff, different techniques, doing the same things, just better and faster.
What changes is the changes are from the intricacies between versions. That's the main. Yeah. That's the key
and
thing.
GPUs are getting better and stronger, and that's always cool.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Now let's go back to Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yay.
Eddie Brock for the first time, and they both find themselves competing for a staff job. Now, I like Topher Grace. I know a lot of people don't, but I think he's a fine actor. Unfortunately, he's all wrong for the part of Eddie Brock. It was my understanding that this character, as written, is supposed to be slick and slimy, but despite his best efforts, Grace just doesn't make the character come off as anything but obnoxious. Anyway, James...
On top of the actor not being...
Sand is not slimy.
Wait, no.
Sand is annoying. It gets everywhere.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there. But on top of Topher Grace not being right for the role, the character as we're shown is not even Eddie Brock at all. Eddie Brock is not this conniving, is not this evil. He was an honest man just trying to make his living in the world and just ran into a streak of bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
A good man that was turned to sorry for the ominousness, turned to the darkness because of everything that happened to him, especially related to Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and all the symbiote did at that point was just give him the means to his ends. That's pretty much the gist of it. And this version does not hit does not even, it's not even a home run, it's not even a foul ball. He just misses completely. It's just wrong in many respects.
I'm kind of curious what they would have normally done. Just get a generic jock guy to be Eddie Brock, and that would have been fine. Like just any generic actor, pull him in. Okay, be the tough guy who's angry. Done. That would have been fine.
Yeah, at least, and it's like it's a hard exterior with a heart of gold. That's the basic gist of Eddie Brock, at least initially. But like I've said it in at least one or two Smudcasts before, Sam Raimi was not a fan of the character, and he deliberately influenced the writing of Eddie Brock to be this way, just to stick it to Sony.
Right. All right. Well, either way, he's a good actor. Just wrong part.
Jameson tells them both that the first person to get him a picture of Spider-Man doing something illegal will get the staff job. So then Peter and Harry dick around in a scene that does nothing but make the running time a little longer, and then we move on to Mary Jane being told she's being let go from her acting job. Apparently she was panned by all the critics in town. Now, personally, I don't buy this at all. It's just another example of the writers force-feeding the characters problems so they can bitch about them later. The first review...
Wait, what? I'm not following. I don't believe the fiction in this story. It's like, why not?
So character death is bad. Problems for characters are bad. What does he want?
I don't know, guys. Have you ever had anything in life where everything went great, everyone loved what you did, and at the end of the day, you still didn't get the thing you thought you would have got? Or you got fired, or you didn't win, or you did everything right, but you still didn't get the thing you wanted. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So...
yeah, we can agree that the execution of this is mediocre at best, but something like this happening in real life is pretty much normal.
Yeah.
When shit just goes wrong, downhill all the way for no fucking reason, and you can't do anything to stop it. That's normal.
Yeah,
The way the movie does it is shit, though.
This is like any job interview. You get to the fourth stage. It's like, well, we found someone else. Or, oh, you're perfect except for that one little thing or some dumb reason. You're like, oh, really? Okay. So this happens a lot. This is not a big deal.
Yes.
Mary Jane got complained that her small voice didn't carry past the first row. But, well, perhaps another demonstration.
I can't recall who said it. I know I never read it. I only know they tell me that love is grand.
I'm sorry, small voice or no small voice, if she could sing like that, there would be no bad reviews, let alone all bad reviews.
Yeah, but this is not about the reasoning itself. A guy in charge of a production or a boss can give any stupid reason. Like, oh, no, we just didn't think you're right for the part. We got someone else. It doesn't matter. They're just making an excuse.
The reason can be an excuse because they wanted to give it to someone else for nepotism.
There's all kinds of reasons. You get fired for no reason at all, and you have to make one up. You don't have to analyze it. That's fine.
Restructuring.
When we hear in this scene the girl that's going to replace her, we realize that she isn't a better singer, she just adds a little more flavor to the song. And if the directors wanted more flavor, well, that's something that should have been worked out in the auditioning process in the first place.
Yes.
The whole conflict just feels unnatural and contrived.
No, Matthew, that's no.
How would you know what's natural? You don't seem to get out much.
This is like every conversation with every woman, first date, first job interview. It's like, oh, we don't feel you're right for the parts, or we didn't like your uninterest in corporate culture, or you had too much experience but not enough examples, or too many examples but not enough experience. Like, there's pick a reason. It doesn't matter. Doesn't make sense. It's not actually. You know what? If it didn't make sense, the better. The more contrived the reason, that would even make more, because they came up with a stupid excuse. That would be better, I think.
Yeah, and that happens too.
Speaking of unnatural and contrived, we then cut to a scene of a parade in honor of Spider-Man. Mary Jane shows up, but decides not to burden Peter with her recent layoff. Meanwhile, Flip Marko is walking around with a dumb expression on his face when he gets recognized by two police officers. They begin to chase after him when he runs behind what has got to be the only truck full of sand within a 10-mile radius. It didn't have concrete or cinder blocks in it, it had specifically sand. How fucking convenient.
Yeah.
So the two cops, who are totally unaware that Marko is able to turn into sand, take off the tarp over the truck. Then God makes a shovel materialize in one of the cops' hands, and he gets up on the truck.
They have shovels usually at the back of the truck, or the side of the truck.
Yes.
Has this guy seen?
I'd say this one is just a bit very full.
Yeah, like, okay, trucks like this full of sand, this would not work. You need a tarp over that. You need.
No, there was a tarp. They took it off. They took it. The cops took it off to see if Marko was in there, and he was.
Yeah, because this would totally get lost in transit. But
yeah.
If you see coal or asphalt or gravel, there is usually a shovel attached to the side of the truck or the back of the truck. So, again, maybe Matthew doesn't know that, but I have people who work in construction. They always have some sort of tool that you can transport or maneuver the thing, which is granular, with some kind of net or mesh or shovel. So, not a big deal. And do we really need to know the details to have like a 2-second scene of a cop grabbing a shovel attached to the back of a truck? No. It's not a big deal.
You need to get out more. Pay attention to your surroundings.
I want to see him climb up the back side of the truck like for 5 seconds on each handhold, and then grab the shovel and then dust himself off. Like, okay, dude. We don't need all that detail.
Which is, by the way, what he complained about Aunt May.
Oh, right.
That she was talking too much detail.
Exactly, yeah. All that, we went swimming, and then he told me to close my eyes, and I did. And it's like, I'm so bored.
Yeah, there's like anyone that complains about that scene. It's like Wes said earlier, because I was able to catch that before I got home. It's like you're really not a romantic, are you?
Well,
It does
No,
that does work.
Your poor girlfriend, if you ever get one.
Girlfriends love it when you gush about them. In case you guys don't know.
The scene might lag a little bit for some, but
Right.
the general premise of it still works.
Yeah.
And it's also because Peter himself is also going to propose like a little while after that,
Yeah.
later in the movie.
When you talk to a woman about romance, they are going to just talk about anything related to romance because that's
Yeah, they will elaborate.
part of their brain is like, ooh, I know this topic. I'm going to turn on full tilt and go crazy for 10 minutes. So
Oh, cute little things where he really thought about the things I like and paid attention. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
it
there's
is.
there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, women like to talk about that topic a lot.
A little bit of mystery, a little bit of magic, and it's all wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially if it's to a close family member, especially in the case of Peter and May, with how close the familial relationship is there.
That's nothing to say of two women talking about anything, but specifically relationships. Oh my goodness, you got a whole evening planned out right there.
Which Peter did, as we'll see later.
Oh God, you gave me a horrible image in my head right now, Smut.
Okay.
Wait, what happened?
Don't worry, we're good.
No,
It's
no,
not
it's burning itself into my mind. I have to get it out.
Okay, let's talk about
Well,
sand.
at least in this movie, it's not that bad.
No, it's obnoxious. It's as obnoxious as sand. I hate it.
Okay.
It's
Sand-
getting everywhere in my head.
Let's move on then.
Maggie May Fish talking with Liana Kay about romance.
Wow.
Okay. At least Matthew's not as bad as Maggie. Okay.
No, I'm thinking about that. Holy
At least.
hell.
Moving on.
Truck to because, he can breathe down there. He's not just going to come up on his own. So the contrived excuse to put special effects in this scene pays off, and the Sandman bursts forth from the convenient truck full of sand and then flies away. Meanwhile, Peter is ready to make his debut in the parade. He comes swinging in and does a few tricks for the audience when the audience begins egging him on to kiss the girl on stage. Here we have the most out-of-character moment in the entire film. A moment that sacrifices every established character trait Peter has to make room for more artificial problems.
Go ahead, lay one on me.
Really?
Yeah, they'll love it.
All right.
Why the fucking hell would Peter be so stupid and bastardly as to kiss another girl right in front of Mary Jane, who he's fought his ass off for 2 films to finally be with? Why? I mean, maybe there's a good explanation. Maybe he just didn't think she'd be looking.
No, yeah, this is stupid. Why did he do this?
You could say it's acting because that's what the audience wants, but it's not a good move. So.
No, it's not. It's not a good move.
If he were to tell Mary Jane, "Oh, I'm going to kiss this girl just for get the crowd going," but maybe you might do that beforehand, but
no, the movie does specifically put it as a on the spot moment. Which no, why?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It makes a situation that's already bad, at least for one of them, even worse.
Right.
It was a dumb move.
Maybe
all around.
if she did it with the mask on, they'd be like, "Okay, it's kind of cool," because
Yeah, but because of how much of a good streak, how much of a good luck streak Peter's gotten up to this point, from the end of the second movie all the way to here, he was a bit too cocky.
Yeah.
Thinking that his romance was just healthy enough to go beyond this, when no, it isn't. Especially since MJ's already been fired up after the whole thing with the play.
MJ keeps getting shot down in this film.
Yeah, and Peter thinks everything is just fine, and then he pulls this stunt like an idiot. But yeah, this is the case in point. This is a bad move. Moving on.
I'm gonna be swinging in from over there.
Oh, yeah.
So you know where to look.
Plus the fact
Okay,
that he just straight up tells
this
her where to
movie
look.
sucks. So after this scene,
Yes.
we then leap to Peter trying to propose to Mary Jane. Now, there's an in-joke in this scene revolving around a French waiter, but it's never really funny. It's more just bizarre.
Are you fucking kidding me? the Bruce Campbell cameo. Are you seriously gonna say that wasn't funny? This is the best one of the entire trilogy. Come on now.
I wanted Bruce Campbell as Mysterio, damn it.
Yeah, and we brought that up before on the Smudcast, and I'm just like, and that was the original plan for him to be revealed to me Mysterio the whole fucking time. And
That's why he kept appearing.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why. That would have been so good, though. And it's like, it's literally the line from Spider-Man 2 that pretty much drives the point home and helps maintain the illusion. But because of Spider-Man 3 was such a fucking bomb, they had to abandon that.
All right. Here's Jake the Surgeon for the 5. I've been told I sound like confused extra 21st chromosome, and I don't know why.
What?
What does that mean?
It's a Down syndrome joke.
Oh, God.
Really? Okay.
The point is, the Bruce Campbell cameos are always funny, and it's literally the one.
Point?
And it's little what?
Oh no, I just thought they had a point. Never mind.
No, but yeah, it's like the cameo, the Bruce Campbell cameos in the trilogy are all pretty funny, and and the one in Multiverse of Madness is literally the one funny joke in that whole movie.
Yeah, I think every time Bruce Campbell's in a film as a cameo, it's a good scene. Like, there's never been a bad one, as far as I can remember.
It's at least amusing.
Yeah.
And also
Even
the fact
Drag
that
Me to Hell, it was the best scene, I'd say.
yeah, and it's like, and hey, there's a reason why they make it a point to have Bruce Campbell's character be the one to name Spider-Man in the first movie. If not for that, he'd be the human fucking spider. I'm just like, no, thank you, Bruce Campbell, for the actual name. And literally introduces him as the Amazing Spider-Man, as a reference to the comics, because Sam Raimi's a fan, which is sorely lacking in modern superhero movies. Marvel, thank you very much. Moving on.
Anyway, Mary Jane shows up when those pesky, contrived, and out-of-character problems come up, and Mary Jane leaves in a disappointed fit. The scene can be summed up this way. Peter tries to be reasonable, while Mary Jane reacts unreasonably. What makes this scene tedious in retrospect is that it never amounts to anything, and I'll tell you why. After this scene, we get another soap opera reveal that the man who killed Peter's uncle didn't really kill his uncle, Flint Marko did. Dun dun dun. So at home, Mary Jane shows up, completely putting the restaurant scene behind her, and tries to be there for Peter. This scene can be summed up this way. Mary Jane tries to be reasonable, while Peter reacts unreasonably. So which is it? Which established plot point are we supposed to be following here? Who's in the wrong, Peter or Mary Jane? We've had two scenes back-to-back, each establishing the exact opposite thing. So which one are we supposed to take to heart?
I'm not seeing how that's a problem per se, because in a certain social setting, like going to dinner, someone walks out, they're confused, they're distraught, they're unhappy, they go off their merry way, and they go to bed. They wake up the next morning, they put it past them.
The reason why the attitudes are reversed is because in the second conversation here, this is after Peter gets the revelation that Flint Marko is the one that killed Uncle Ben.
Right.
So that would definitely change his tune. And Mary Jane's come along to apologize for the night at the restaurant, but then now Peter's the one riled up because of the Flint Marko reveal.
Right. And he can't deal with her again because he has other things on his mind. So
he has Flint Marko on the mind because he's Spider-Man. The first chance he gets, he's going to take advantage, and he does.
Yeah, so a believable scenario for Mary Jane, and I would say and argue a believable scenario for Peter, because that was a really big scene or a big event in his life. So
yes.
And he was about... Did he even get to propose to her? I don't even think she did in that scene.
No, she walked out before that because of the whole because of the controversy with Gwen Stacy.
Yeah. So he's not like, oh, well, I did my thing. My courage is done. I don't need to go and do it again. Now I got this huge other problem. Plus, that's still in the back of my mind. I can't deal with that right now. I can't deal with Mary Jane.
Yeah, for as dumb as the whole thing of Flint Marko being Ben's killer, for how dumb that is, that at least explains that at least explains the heel turn in his attitude after the fact for this scene.
Yeah,
because that's all I can focus on.
Okay, here's Jake the Surgeon again. Come on, get down with the syndrome.
Okay.
Lyrics to a song, I hope. Okay.
Yes.
And also, Ego Dreamer pretty much hit the nail on the head. Both are in the wrong. Matthew just sucks at reading human interactions.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. He wants like every scene to connect logically. It's like, well, that would
to an extent.
That would be nice, but it's not this universal requirement that every story that already has a plot needs to have every scene physically match every scene later.
At the very least, they make the attempt to give you the events that set up their personalities for each specific scene.
Yeah, if Mary Jane is the person to go home and relax and figure out, what I did was wrong, and then
which she did,
and the next day she's calm and collected. That's fine. I don't need any like backstory or flashback where she goes home and takes a deep breath and goes in the bath and goes, "Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that." And that's when the reversal comes in, because while she's doing that, that's when we get the reveal of Flint Marko being the killer, right? Explaining
the reversal. So, as bad as the movie may be, they at least had that little tiny bit of basic emotional structure. They at least had that down pat.
Yeah,
whether it's good or not, we can debate, but they at least give you everything, so that at least makes some kind of sense.
Yeah, she clearly cares about Peter, and she's trying to be apologetic.
Yes.
Fine. To me, that works.
To an extent, but yes.
This is yet another sign, to put it mildly, that this film needed a serious trimming down. Anyway, Peter then goes to sleep
Well, no, you wouldn't trim it down. You wouldn't cut it out. I don't know why he'd want that scene to be removed. You want conflict between characters, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it does. That scene does serve its purpose.
Right.
It's just that with how stubborn we know Peter Parker to get, not just in these movies, but just in general, when he focuses on a detail as major as the real killer of his uncle, you can't get him out of that funk.
Right.
That's plain and simple.
Night when the black suit finally attaches itself to him and he decides to use his new powers to track down Marko. Eventually he finds him walking around in the sewers for reasons that are never quite explained, as always with a dumb expression on his face. Now you'd think this would be the moment where Marko finally emerges as a character and adds something to the story, but no, the two just fight for a little while until Marko crumbles in a pool of water. I'm starting to notice a pattern here. Characters and plot threads are introduced only for the writers to get them out of the way to make room for something else, which is in turn set up to be gotten out of the way to make room for something else. Lather, rinse, repeat. So after this, we find Mary Jane lonely, and she decides to pay a visit to Harry. Now, I just want to say, if they had focused on one or two of these plot threads and built a story around them, rather than just piling them on without coherence, Spider-Man 3 could have been a truly great film. Instead, we have to watch scenes like this. See that. Hey, here's an idea. Instead of wasting precious screen time making us watch these two cook food in the kitchen and dance around like dorks, why don't you try putting a good story together?
Well, it's not Peter doing this, is it?
All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting.
So they're trying to connect the relationship between Mary Jane and best friend. So
yeah, they're trying to do a repeat of the love triangle between them from the first movie. At least that's what I'm getting from it. And I'm just like, yeah, Matthew's kind of right here. It is a bit forced. And this scene in particular, yeah, it kind of does look stupid.
Combined with the fact he has amnesia, it's like, oh, we're doing this again.
Yeah, which makes it even weirder.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it could have been done better.
Right.
You are such a nerd.
Welcome to part 3. So after their little dance, Mary Jane and Harry have a chat when Harry steals a kiss. And that makes this one of the most irrelevant scenes ever to not end up on the cutting room floor.
Why?
It's never going to come up again. Peter and Mary Jane are never going to talk about this. What's this doing in the film?
Oh, you fucking
So
idiot.
then Mary...
You fucking idiot. She saw Peter kiss a girl, now she kisses a guy because she thinks that's fine. They're even now.
Yes.
And the audience
And
knows
this is-
this, and Mary Jane knows this.
And hell, literally in the previous movie, which is touted as one of the best superhero movies ever made, she did this to Peter with John Jameson to get back at Peter for not getting together. That was literally the whole reason why she did that in the last movie.
It's almost
Didn't
like
have to
she's
break
not a
the-
great girlfriend.
You didn't have to break the astronaut's heart.
Yes, this
Also,
this
pretty
trilogy
sure
goes.
Jameson would be, pretty sure Jameson would be on Peter's ass for the fact of, why is my son's fiance dating you now?
Right.
I'll say that's a missed opportunity. Absolutely.
Just Jameson being harsher, all because of
Even
what
if it's
happened there.
even if it's just one scene, something would have been good with that. Something, but no, not even that.
All right. Here's Legacy for $4.99. Would Spider-Man 3 benefit for having Scorpion instead of that overused alien space goo Venom?
We really don't know.
It depends.
Because again, it depends. Because like I said earlier, the original plan was Sandman and Vulture with Harry on standby at most.
Yeah. as
So
soon as you-
anything added. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, as soon as you include Venom, that you're changing the personality of the person who uses the symbiote. So that could be interesting, and you could play around with that in lots of fun ways. But is it necessary? Not really, no.
Not at this point in this universe. No.
Yeah.
They shoehorned him in because they thought fans wanted him. When in fact, we would have been fine with anything as long as it was good.
Yeah, but even in the comics, I think people enjoyed the symbiote a lot. The storyline with Carnage and Venom and all that stuff. It really
But I do agree. They should have saved that for another movie.
And that was the plan. But the thing is, it's like the main writer, Alvin Sargent, couldn't find a way to connect both halves of the symbiote story together. That's the official explanation. When the bell tower scene exists for that very reason. But the thing is, Venom, I mean, their reasoning for putting Venom in the movie is right. He is a fan favorite. He's one of the few things from the 90s that was actually good that people like to this day. That and Deadpool.
I mean, no one likes the Jackal. He was the worst thing in the Clone Saga. That and the Clone Saga itself.
Yeah,
Peter not being the real Peter after all these years.
That was dumb. That was dumb.
Christ,
but going back to just Venom, he became a fan favorite almost immediately because of how well that entire story was written from start to finish and all the foreshadowing in between. He was built up properly.
Yeah, and he's a creative invention as well.
Yes. And again, one of the few things from the 90s that wasn't complete dog shit that has still persevered to this day as a fan favorite. It's just that whenever they try to put him in something big, they tend to fuck it up. Like this movie and his standalone movie to a lesser extent, but still, at least his main movie more recently, at least it tried a little bit more.
Yeah,
the problem there is that
Venom
it needed Spider-Man.
Venom requires that you slowly introduce him.
Which is
that
why
you do the change and corruption slowly, so you can't just cram the story full of other shit and then rush it.
Which is exactly what the comics did, which was a rarity during that entire period in the comics, where it was just so muscle-bound action. Thanks, Liefeld. Venom was the exception, at least in terms of Marvel, and Deadpool became a breakout hit for its own reasons. But the point is, that is required for Venom to work like he does. It's a slow process, and that could not possibly have been done in a single movie correctly. So naturally, that's exactly why they fucked it up.
All right.
Jane leaves in a fit, and now that we've blown through a few other plot threads, we can now get back to Harry, whose amnesia conveniently wears off. So here's what he does. He returns to Mary Jane and tells her that if she wants Peter to live, she has to do what he says. So here's what she does. She meets with Peter and tells him that their relationship is over. Peter blubbers about this for a while, and Harry looks upon this with a glow of satisfaction. Hey, guess what, Mary Jane? Your boyfriend is Spider-Man! What makes you think Harry is even capable of killing him? Not only that, but Peter is going up against superpowered weirdos all the time. It's kind of part of the job. If you honestly think a superpower-wielding person like Harry is a threat to Peter's life, why have you never even had a problem with Peter being Spider-Man before now? The secret word of the day is contrived. So after the audience has been manipulated...
I wouldn't say contrived. It seems like she's dumb.
Yes.
Now,
this is another stupid thing they do with these two.
Now, you could argue she's doing it just because she wants to placate Harry, so this is all an act to her. So
yeah, you can argue that she did it this way to protect Peter, but because the black suit gets thrown in this, he ends up acting on it anyway. So it was pretty much for nothing, no matter what she said.
Okay.
Into thinking that Mary Jane would agree to something like this, we then cut to a scene of Harry fucking with Peter at a restaurant, telling him that he's the other man in Mary Jane's life. So Peter goes to get his black suit and returns to kick Harry's ass. He's just about to leave when Harry picks up a grenade and chucks it at Peter, who grabs it, throws it back, and blows Harry up in the face. This scene was designed to show how Peter is losing control and doing bad things. The problem is, that never happens. Throwing a grenade at Harry is a good thing.
Oh, that's Mud?
Well, okay, so Harry's about to kill Peter with a grenade, and Peter responds by defending himself and throwing the grenade back.
Yeah. Well,
that's fine.
You could say throwing it back, you could argue, is because of the black suit. He could have just dodged it normally and everything would have been fine.
For sure. But if someone attacks you with a weapon and throws it at you, you could toss it back. That's fair.
Yeah. And it's like, and this serves as bad as the arc is, this does service the changes in Peter.
Right.
Bad quality aside.
Harry is trying to kill Peter. He's been trying to kill Peter in every scene he's been in. He tried to kill Peter in this scene. Twice. Try again, guys. Throwing a grenade at Harry is not bad. So after bringing Harry back into the film only to get him out of the way again,
it's not that it isn't bad. It just makes sense.
An unfavorable picture of Spider-Man in the Bugle taken by Eddie Brock. He recognizes the photo as a fake, so he confronts Eddie, calls him trash, and threatens to expose both he and the picture for the fakes that they are. Eddie responds by calling him a Boy Scout and asks, "When are you going to give a guy a break?" Peter then violently shoves him against the wall and tells him, "If you want forgiveness, get religion." Thanks, Peter. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for a break. So Peter does expose the picture as a fake, and Eddie Brock gets fired. This scene was once again designed to show how Peter is losing control and doing bad things, and once again, it doesn't happen. Turning Brock in was a good thing. His picture was a fake, and he was dishonest. If Peter never got the black suit,
the actual
isn't
Eddie Brock wouldn't do this,
something
though.
that he would have done anyway? Yes, sirree, Bob.
Yes.
Try again, guys. Turning Brock in is not bad. So after this, we roll into a montage of Peter strutting down the street, annoying people, and pretty much just acting like a dork. Now, I have no problem with the filmmakers trying to inject comedy into this film. The problem is, it's the wrong kind of comedy. This is something that belongs in a parody. It does not belong in a film like this. So now that they've gotten a few more things out of the way, the Sandman...
But Spider-Man is a funny character.
If you take
Yes.
Peter Parker and remove his inhibitions, he'd probably do stupid shit in a dorky way.
The problem, however, is that they try to insert comedy into something like the Symbiote saga, where it makes very little sense. That's the real issue. It's not that
Yeah,
there's comedy at all.
That I could agree with, yes. If you do the remove inhibition from Peter Parker thing, that's what the Spider-Man costume does.
Yes.
So that's the actual real Peter Parker.
Yeah, and the symbiote amplifies
And the symbiote-
negative emotion, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So not
Yes, that is,
So he lets that out without the costume.
yeah.
that symbiote is basically just a mindless animal. There is no basis of right and wrong with it. It just
Yeah, so
it simply attaches itself to the host and amplifies the negative emotions of the host. That's
Yeah.
it, and amplifies their physical capabilities.
yeah, so now you imagine how do you combine that? The less inhibited or uninhibited Peter Parker. So you would get the Spider-Man element of the humor, the comedy that Spider-Man does. But now you do it as in a negative form, like being an asshole without a costume. And this is an application of that. So I can see how they got to that. Whether that's a good choice or not is a different question.
For this movie, it's debatable. You can put it as simply as Spider-Man is just an uninhibited Peter Parker, for the comedy and everything, like his actual personality. And one could argue that Spider-Man with the symbiote is an uninhibited Spider-Man. Stronger, faster, less self-restricting, if you will. He cuts loose. He cuts loose more.
All right, here's Jake the Surgeon. Youngblood was outstanding. Their feet were outstandingly drawn.
Nah, most of the Liefeld shit was god awful. Deadpool was the only good thing to survive all that crap. Did Youngblood get a game? Nope.
Did you get a movie?
Nope.
Video game?
I just said game, yeah.
It got a Wolfenstein.
What about breakfast cereal? Toy? Nothing?
Okay, yeah, the point is Deadpool wasn't the one that ended up being the breakout of the Liefeld crap.
Right.
And honestly, for good reason.
Oh boy.
And conveniently reemerges. Meanwhile, Peter takes a girl to a nightclub where he knows Mary Jane is working as a waitress. As Mary Jane is the one who broke his heart after being manipulated in ways that make absolutely no sense, Peter finally gets his revenge by dancing around the room. Yeah, that showed her.
The goddamn dance scene. Not only one of the worst scenes in the entire fucking movie, but you just also skate right through it, which no. This must be stated that it is one of the worst scenes in the movie. We can debate all we want whether we like it or hate it, but this did not need to be here.
Yeah,
this absolutely didn't need to be here.
Anything where someone is mind controlled or his inhibitions are down, it's like, okay, alien interference. You're like, whatever, fine.
This is what we get in this movie instead of a full out rampage from a rage-filled symbiote Spider-Man, which even the 90s cartoon did right, for as cheesy as it was. That's the breaking point for Peter Parker when he has the symbiote. Not this shit.
Eventually his date leaves and things get a little heated between he and Mary Jane when finally he accidentally wheels around and punches her in the face. This jogs for him the fact that he should probably lose the suit, so he goes to a church and tries to take it off where Eddie Brock and absolutely no one else just happens to be at the time. Looks like he took Peter's small, insignificant comment about finding religion literally. He kneels down, introduces himself to God, and very casually and politely asks God to kill Peter Parker. First of all, I think you've mistaken God for Don Corleone. Second, how did you go from douche to murderer all of a sudden? Peter loses you your job and you want him dead? You're not just gonna, I don't know, start out a little smaller, like maybe asking God to lose Peter his job?
Nah,
oh no, that's
all or
right.
nothing.
People wanting people dead is bad, and Brock is a bad guy. Never mind if he would actually want Peter dead, the plot needs him to be that bad, so he is.
Even though we've seen him in barely anything in this movie. They've given him next to no screen time compared to other things. Which is not how this story should have worked.
Yeah, it gets a bit silly at this point.
A bit. Oh, a bit.
We've already
Are you
passed,
sure?
We've passed the epitome of silly, and now we're like the dregs of silly are just like
You think we're past it, but we're not done yet.
we're not exactly.
So Ed the suit and then tracks down the Sandman and strikes a deal with him. He tells him, "Look, I want Spider-Man dead. You want Spider-Man dead. Let's work together." So hang on, did I miss something here? When did the Sandman want Spider-Man dead? He didn't. But the plot needs him to now, so the Sandman agrees. As usual, an elaborate trap is set up using Mary Jane as bait. Peter has to try to save her, but he can't do it alone, so he goes to Harry for help. Harry tells him to take a hike, and afterwards his butler approaches him and gives him information that would have saved everyone a lot of time and trouble, and even have saved lives if he had just opened his mouth a few films ago. So Spider-Man shows up at the trap and gets wailed on by these two until Harry shows up to help. Now, having these two work together as friends would have been a great climax if there had been a legitimate building to this point, but it's just tossed in there after so much convoluted garbage. Anyway, eventually Harry gets impaled, and Peter learns that the tones made by a bunch of metal pipes will disrupt the symbiote. So he traps it in a cage of pipes and yanks Eddie out of the suit. Eddie sees Peter about to destroy it, and he leaps toward the plot-triggered grenade. I say plot-triggered because these grenades apparently do only as much damage as the plot requires them to. The exact same grenade that just messed up Harry's face a little bit is the same grenade that incinerates both Eddie and the symbiote in one shot.
Now, we know that the pumpkin bombs are capable of one-shotting anyone within the radius. We know that from the first movie, right? If anyone remembers.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Well, that makes sense for why Eddie died right here. And does anyone know off the top of their head what the weaknesses of the symbiote is?
Fire, loud noise.
Fire and loud noise, yes. We got a glimpse of the first weakness when he was using the pipes, and I'm pretty sure this is a combustion-based explosion, which is fire, explaining why the symbiote died, like, immediately. And you could argue, oh, why didn't it fucking kill Harry? Well, he had the serum in him already. That made him superhuman, essentially. The movie does not say this at all, but
yeah,
from what we see, that's what you can imply.
I think most people.
I'm not trying to rewrite the movie for Sony. I'm just like, that's what we see. That's what you can get out of it. That's it.
Yeah, I think most people, when they see an explosion, it's probably deadly, whether you're an alien or not. So,
yes,
it's fair enough. Here's Jake one more time. Matt has apparently never read the Bible. Okay, fair. I mean, if you read the Bible, there's a whole lot of death going around with God. So, at least the Old
Testament. But caused directly by God?
Yes. Old Testament, yeah.
He did a lot of smiting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just like...
I'll go seek religion. Oh, Old Testament. Awesome. Hey, God, go kill my enemies. All right, fair enough. Ugh.
That's what you had gods for.
The real reason why it doesn't work is because that does not fit Eddie Brock's character.
Yeah.
Because all he asked for in the original story was forgiveness. He didn't ask God to kill anyone. He literally did ask God for forgiveness after all the shit that happened to him. That's it.
All right. 2 more minutes. Woohoo.
Uh-huh. So after this, the Sandman approaches Peter and starts confessing what happened the night his uncle was killed. He tells Peter that he knows he's done bad things and that he doesn't expect forgiveness. Peter then comes back with, "I've done bad things too." No, you haven't. You haven't done bad things at all. Throwing a grenade at Harry was a good thing. Turning Brock in was a good thing. Punching Mary Jane in the face was bad, but an accident. And everything else was...
It was an accident?
It was bad, but it was an accident, Smud.
Yes.
So it doesn't count.
Yes, it was an accident because he was being covered. He was getting pulled away. I think it was he got the bouncer was going to tell him to leave, but then he confronted the bouncer, pushed him all the way to the wall, and just the bouncers were trying to get him out, and then Mary Jane stepped in and he hit her by accident.
Look, the bad thing you did doesn't count if you didn't intend to do it.
Oh,
that's narcissistic thinking, by the way. Like, oh, if you got hurt by my punching you, that doesn't count. I don't need to apologize for that because I didn't intend to hurt you. I
But
only
because
punched you. I only wanted
Yeah.
to punch you.
unfortunately, because we needed some kind of breaking point for Peter to take the suit off, that's what we got. And at least the other two instances, yeah, as much as I agree with Matthew here, a little bit, it's just the way it's portrayed is, yeah, Peter did absolutely lose control every single time he did something like that. He lost control, point blank.
And he danced evilly.
Well, that's a whole other discussion, because fuck that scene. But
yeah, but that's doing evil things.
Dancing is evil in this film.
no, in all seriousness, the dancing scene was just to get at MJ, and he did dance with Gwen for a little bit. So technically, you're right. He did kind of dance evilly. By technicality, you are right.
I have done evil things.
Hold on. No. In all seriousness, by technicality, you are right, because he only did that entire dance just to get at MJ, to make her jealous.
I'll add another.
Technically, you're right. He did it to stick it to her.
I got another star in my sticker book.
I danced the dance of revenge.
Hey, the dance of jealousy. Yeah. You say that, but that's why he did it. As much as I fucking hate that scene, by technicality, you're right. But with that said, let's move on.
Okay.
Just you acting like a super dork. The only thing you've done bad in this film was dance. You can't have it both ways. Putting the suit on either made Peter bad or it made him funny. You made him funny. You don't get to make him
funny
say,
bad.
I've done...
Why can't you do both?
Yes.
What's stopping him?
Because it doesn't work for it being both, okay?
It worked for
I've said it
Megamind.
already. Well, Megamind is a parody of the whole superhero concept to begin with.
Well, all it does is make Peter's dorkiness come out more. So it's like, all right, well, that's fine.
Well, Smud, what I specifically mean is that for the symbiote story arc from the 90s, this kind of comedy doesn't work.
Oh,
that's all I'm saying.
If you're going back by the actual lore, that's fine. But obviously, this is what's happening in the story. And the tone might be turning most of the audience off, and you might be thinking, this is a really cringy scene. But
yes,
you can make him evil. You can make him dorky. You can make him good. You can make him whatever. You can make him all kinds of things.
No, I won't deny the possibility that it could have worked. I'll give you that one. It's just the way they did it, because Sam Raimi is not a fan of Venom.
Because
he did it this way to stick it to Sony.
Once you start talking about mind manipulation or removing your inhibitions, you're open to anything. You can do all kinds of crazy things, which is not a good idea, because then you're going to confuse people. Like, what the hell does this thing do to this poor guy? So it's good to keep it simple, but if you're already having him dancing around like a goofball, it's like, all right, maybe he could be apologetic. Maybe he could be sympathetic. Maybe he could be whatever. And it's up to explaining that in the story, because once you have an alien influence, you have to limit it. You have to say, this is what it does. And we know it from the comics. We know it from the 90s show. But this is Sam Raimi. He can do what he wants. But,
It's not. The problem isn't that he can do what he wants. It's the fact that he was against the symbiote being in here in the first place.
And this
because it's not because this is not from what he read as a kid.
Yeah.
This was after that.
Yeah.
So he deliberately wrote it like shit.
I think.
Yes.
So.
No. Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did specifically to stick it at Tony. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it like this because fuck you.
Yeah, I think he knew what he was doing.
I mean, I can understand. I can understand the notion. That's that gets us the product we have.
Right.
And it was a sacrifice he was more than willing to make, from what I've researched.
Well, it's his way of sticking it to the executives.
Yeah, because on top of that, he had to change his original plan of it being Sandman and Vulture, because he had that almost completely worked out by the time they told him put Venom in here. It's like you mess with the creator, they're gonna poke right back.
Well, the scenes with him dancing on the streets is like no different than going downtown, so it's not a big deal.
Not at this point in the movie, no. It's just the bigger dance scene near the end of the movie that's the real problem.
Exactly. All right. One more minute.
Things too. So Peter forgives him, and the Sandman just floats away. So did he ever help his daughter or not? Way to resolve things,
We'll never
guys.
know.
So Harry dies, Peter and Mary Jane get back together, and that's it. Nothing really resolves because there wasn't anything legitimate to resolve. The writers just built a house of cards just to knock it down so they could build it right back up again.
Wait. So getting them back together is not resolution? What is he talking about?
I don't know.
In a way, yes, it is a resolution. The problem is that they themselves created the problem.
Yeah, but it depends how it's done, of course. But if he's saying the people that are villains go away or die, and the heroes or heroines get together, it's like, that's a resolution.
Yeah, there is resolution, Matthew.
He might not like it. It might not be told very well, but he's saying there isn't one. Or it's a house of cards, it's not a house of cards. What are you talking about?
Not the way he puts it, no.
Yeah, that's not what a house of cards is. House of Cards is when you invent something and you have this big conspiracy that all these elements are moving together and it's so shaky that it can't possibly stand by itself.
Yeah.
So how is this a house of cards if they love each other? That's weird.
Yeah, that love for each other never went away. It's just life happens.
Yeah, it was tested.
Part of the point.
They, Mary Jane wasn't treated right. Peter Parker wasn't in his own mind. So,
yes.
It's
It's not exactly a healthy relationship, but it's just strong enough for that they can still make it work somehow.
Yeah, this is the third film where they're constantly seeking each other out and trying to work out their problems. So no, it's not a house of cards, Matthew.
Yes.
The Spider-Man franchise is not a franchise that I hate. I didn't like the first Spider-Man, but it wasn't terrible, and Spider-Man 2 was one of the best films of the last 5 years. Spider-Man 3 just sunk in an inescapable quicksand of special effects and bad writing. We're now hearing reports of a Spider-Man 4 in the works, and I don't dread this at all. Spider-Man 3 was god-awful, but I'm holding out hope that it was just a rare misstep. Maybe they just got overconfident, and after this film's failure, they finally learned from their mistakes. I certainly hope so. But whatever they do with 4, please, no more dancing. The end.
Well, at least they did that right.
All right.
No, we got great memes out of it.
All right, meme time. See what we got.
You are such a nerd.
Da-da-da.
I don't think we have any.
We should.
Sure, really? At least a few. Come on.
Oh.
All right, here we go.
Oh, my Discord was dirt.
Spider Pig does whatever Spider Pig does. Okay. Interesting. The most overrated goo of Marvel.
Yeah, this is just true.
Venom, yeah.
This is absolute fact right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can't defeat me, we know, but he can.
What the fuck? No.
What?
It's multiverse bullshit.
Oh. I like where this is going. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Okay, Spider-Man. When you learn that Spider-Man 3 still holds the best first day in Paris theaters even after Endgame came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
Spider Randy. Spider Randy.
Alfred Molina does Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, we'll watch that later.
Later, yes.
Apparently, whoa. Everybody gets one. Everyone gets what? A one what?
Everybody gets one web.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to post some of my older artworks of the original anti-Spider-Man because he's heavily underutilized because of Venom. When you see Miss Marvel, it's Carol Danvers. All right.
Oh, yeah, Scorpion.
How Marvel normally treats Scorpion. He was Venom for a few years, gets stuck inside his suit, doesn't like to be called names, hates Jameson more than Spider-Man.
Usually joins the Sinister Six.
Oh. It's pretty disappointing in Ultimate, really? Oh.
Yeah, Ultimate is just garbage in general, except for some stuff with Spider-Man. But even then,
How Marvel
and
should-
hasn't, and also hasn't fought anyone else within the Marvel universe except for Miss Marvel at one point, which is Miss Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel.
can easily be Captain America, Spider-Woman, Black Widow, Daredevil, Doc Ock, Wolverine, and Sabretooth? What?
Yes, he is that. Scorpion is that effective. It's just he's just underutilized.
Okay, can go toe-to-toe with She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, really. Warpath, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Venom, and Rhino. Huh.
Yes.
Wow. All right, bunch of other stuff I'm not going to read, but you guys get the idea.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kirby. Look at that. That's cute.
Spider Kirby. Boyo.
He put a
Boyo.
some kind of Bowler hat or whatever, and
Think of a fedora, spider-themed fedora, I think, or whatever. Top hat.
I think it's a reference to voodoo stuff.
what is
A little bit, yeah.
what is happening here?
Oh god.
Someone
Damn, that's an epic fail right there.
I'm not sure what's going on here.
Some kind of stunt, I think.
He falls on a building.
Shit.
Is that a prop?
That had to have been.
I can't.
That had to be a hell of a fall.
I can't tell. The floor is
Shit.
not breaking Gwen Stacy's neck.
Oh fuck. Fucking night Gwen Stacy died.
You know, they should have nicknamed her Whiplash. I can't put my finger on
There's
it.
no. There's already a Whiplash. Ivan Banco.
All right, we'll call her
Iron Man-
Whiplash Girl.
Just like there's already a Whiplash. Iron Man 2.
What do photos and Gwen Stacy have in common? Peter Parker snaps both. Oh,
And I was having such a nice day.
well, okay. The only thing that snapped harder than Thanos' finger was Gwen Stacy's.
Oh. Oh.
Jeez.
Oh man.
Take it easy. You're
Oh.
falling, but Spider-Man is there to save you. Oh.
Oh my god. Never get old.
They're really pushing that scene in that film. Holy crap.
The fuck
Oh,
is-
crack your back. Tobey Maguire. Gwen. Oh, come on.
He's been through enough.
Gonna cry? Oh.
Gonna cry. Oh no. Oh, what the hell?
Catch me if you can. Oh.
It's important to practice safe catching methods when dealing with the Gwen Stacy of your universe. Accidents have been known to happen. I literally cried during that part of the movie. Not funny, Deadpool. It's funny if you have a dark sense of humor like me.
Oh.
Damn.
Spider-Man does whatever Spider can, spins web anytime, except for Gwen, who frickin' died. Look out, here comes a Saturn Man.
Oh man, I expected you to sing it. Oh. The moment's gone anyway, moving on.
Yeah, forget. Oh boy. Hey Mark, I'm Jake. Listen, Jake. Oops, Steven now. Okay, Steven. Mark. Oh, shush.
Yeah, Moon Knight.
Oh god.
Yeah, multiple personality disorder. That's Moon Knight in a nutshell. Meanwhile, SGI.
Okay.
The Metal Mario texture. That's a mainstay of the old SGI software. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know how Venom works, it's just a skin. It's not, nothing's going into a pocket dimension. It's just a skin. So, although in this case, apparently he ate the kid's clothes. I don't know what's going on here.
They've had sex.
No. Oh, he covered for them. Now I get it.
I guess. I'm not sure.
They're both blushing.
Yeah, it's...
All right. Here. Oh, no.
Bully Maguire, let's go. Bully Maguire and Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
Alrighty. Thank you.
That's so well.
Is that blue hair on? Yeah, I think that is blue hair. Or green hair.
On Joker, it's green.
Yeah, I know, but on the Toby, I can't tell what color. I think that's green.
That's just because of the lighting from the original scene. But he's it's his hair.
All right. That was fun. It's a little weird.
We learn something new every day.
Later reviews. So, enjoy.
Alrighty. That's a good way to end it. Less than 2 hours. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, guys. That was fun. Memes were cool. I always like covering Confused Matthew just because it's a classic. And his takes are always a mixed bag. And you could, say, hey, he made a good observation right there. And sometimes he makes really bad ones. But that's the great thing about reviews.
I honestly find that more relaxing instead of the complete insanity we're dealing with in the present era.
Yes, because even though he gets it wrong sometimes, he's not crazy. He's not insane. He has bad takes and he has good takes. Sometimes they're all together.
And he's especially more open-minded than most crazy reviewers.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always welcome Confused Matthew. And even, what was it? We talked about Rolfe. What's his name? The video game nerd?
Angry Video Game Nerd. Yeah, James Rolfe.
He's pretty good too. But you have to...
And AVGN's review of Spider-Man 3 from back then it was pretty solid, even though it's like we know the movie's dog shit. It's like I can disagree with him, but at the same time I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I never really watched his movie reviews, but you have to you have to remember, he's basically my age. You have to remember the 80s NES era and all the games that he played them all. He must have played every single one because I can't remember half of those. But
never forget Cheetahman 2.
Okay.
A game where you can only play it on a freak where you can only get to the next level by a freak accident.
Yes.
Really?
Actual freak accident.
Oh.
To the point where he had to do it again on a Games Trailers show. What was it? Pop Fiction, where they either prove or debunk gaming myths, and one of them was the Cheetahman 2, 6th or 7th level
with the Blue Moon shit.
Okay. Yeah, the ones in the Blue Moon shit where they actually got James Rolfe to help them out with that again. But
well, I remember the classics: Castlevania, Ghouls and Ghosts. Just like Ninja Gaiden, all these originals that were just so hard.
Lost levels.
Unforgiving. So he played them and he reviewed them, and he swears a lot. He gets angry as a skit, but
that's the gimmick. We can forgive it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his bread and butter, the edgy exaggerations and all that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. Keep the voting going. Keep the suggestions coming. These are all coming from my patrons, by the way, as a suggestion whenever we have a problem with your suggestions, but it's kind of a backup plan, and I'm just going through them all just because we've been missing a lot. But if there's one that you have tried multiple times, you really think is worth it, contact the admins, contact me. We'll take a look at it to make sure it's worthwhile. This one was half an hour, but we enjoyed it. That was good. So we weren't going crazy. If it's worth our time, we'll cover it. So don't worry if it's from BreadTube or from 10 years ago. If it's good, we'll cover it. So that's it.
Possibly maybe at some point someone will suggest the Minority Report review so you can get that one.
That's my favorite one of his. So
yeah,
it's an interesting one. So
this one we did today was one of my favorites, honestly.
Yeah, I think he's known for this one as well. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys. Keep the decisions coming, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.
No.
Bye. Have a great time.
Bye.